think as I move forward in podcasting life, my clients are going to get, or my guests are going to be bigger and bigger. And I think this one I have to mention is pretty big. Special guest today, no other than Anthony Tony Delgado, founder and owner of Latino Wall Street, founder and owner of Disrupt Magazine. What else are you founder and owner of that I might not know?
Well, I'm an investor in the Modi app.
Oh,
so that's
Modi.
one thing.
There's a couple of people on this channel that are on that app. There's a couple of people, but we won't. That wasn't the. That was a good segue.
And really anything that's gonna progress and move the Latino community and really just the culture forward.
Right.
I'm either an investor or co-creator or a supporter,
founder,
or a cheerleader.
Right, supporter,
or a cheerleader, right?
Right. Absolutely.
I want everyone around me to win.
I think that's important because I think a lot of people feel like, and not to go off into mindsets, but like everybody feels like there's only enough. There's only so much, right? And what people don't understand is the market is so big. There's so many angles you can take to make something happen. And when people start to really believe in themselves and understand that part, I think that'll change the paradigm. Right now, it's just like, oh, there's only enough for me. There can only be so many commercial mortgage guys, or there can be so many commercial, man. Man, you can make your own stake in this world. There's so many angles. And I think me and you really see that eye to eye. I think the reason we vibe so much is because I think we have an agreement on that, right? But
it's the mindset of abundance,
right?
It's the mindset of the world's a big place and there's enough pieces of the pie for everybody, right? And I was actually talking to somebody on my team the other day, and I was like, "Listen, how many people are you trying to impact?
Right.
500, 1,000? There's 3 million people that live in Puerto Rico
alone.
Let's put a number on it.
Little
There's
island.
50 million people in Latin America that speak Spanish.
How many?
There's
50 million?
The people in the world. So people are so caught up on the small thing, on the day to day, on the 10 people, on the 100 people, and meanwhile, the world is abundant and there's an unlimited amount of opportunities. And I think once people realize that, all the things that are holding them back disappear.
Right. But I believe that sometimes people have to, they have to see a certain amount of proof. And I think that's where leaders start to emerge, because like the things that we walk into sometimes blindly, just on faith, right? Living in faith. And then things start kind of manifesting, and then people are like, oh, he's so lucky. And all those things that go along with it because you took the risk, right? Like you're like, yo, fuck it. It's going to go one way or another. I'll know if I was right or wrong soon enough. And if I was wrong, I just change direction. If I was right, I'll double down. But most people are like, oh, like he's so lucky, he's so smart. Sometimes it's not smart. Sometimes it's just having a little bit of, bola, a little bit of chutzpah to be like, yo, I'm going to try. It could
10 years of hard work and 15 minutes of luck.
And overnight success. Yeah. All right. Let me ask you about, I want to talk about Latino Wall Street because I'm really, really interested and I want to dive into that. So let's talk about Black Wall Street a little bit, right? So Black Wall Street was, you might know better than me. So if you feel that you're better versed in it, please speak on it. It was in the 1940s or 50s? What?
1920s.
1920s, okay.
So 100 years ago, we just hit the 100-year anniversary recently. And it was a movement. It was a city in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And it was a movement of African Americans who came together. And it was one of the most prosperous communities of African Americans pretty much in our lifetime that we could remember.
Right.
And they came together. They had families. They owned banks, they owned financial institutions, they owned businesses, and it was a community of prosperity in the Black and African American community. And so when we came up with the name Latino Wall Street, I was drawing on some inspiration from Black Wall Street with that same initiative, that same mindset of people who are living by really good values, right? Living a life of integrity, living a life of excellence, right? And being committed to that. And then Latinos coming together and sharing in the wealth, right. Sharing in the abundance, right? And there's a quote from one of the former governors of Puerto Rico that I really love, and I talked about it in my TED Talk. And he is the governor that ushered in Act 20. So people don't know, if you move to Puerto Rico as an investor, there are really good tax incentives, right? Where you can pay, 4% taxes by moving to Puerto Rico as opposed to 25 or more in the United States, right? And when he made that law, people say, hey, it's unfair, right? It's unfair. Why are investors able to move down here and have a lower tax bracket than everyone else, right? And I don't want to say they're going to pay less in taxes, because that's actually disingenuous, right? 4% of billions of dollars is
still a lot of money.
More than the average person probably makes. So they're still paying more in taxes, but they're paying a lower percentage, right? And so people say, hey, that's not fair. And what he said, the governor of Puerto Rico who created this law, he said, I would rather share in prosperity than share in poverty.
Absolutely.
Right. And that speaks to the circle that you surround yourself with, right? They say if your 5 best friends are 5 millionaires, well, then you're going to be the 6th, right? Because you're going to have that circle of abundance. Your conversations are going to be bigger, right? Your goals are going to be bigger. And whether it's someone actually investing into your company because, hey, wow, you have a great company, you have a great dream, a great vision, and I'm going to put some money behind it. Or if it's just investing in your mindset and giving you ideas and maybe connections to someone else, right? I was just on a phone call yesterday, and my accountant was in a room with some really high net worth earners. And he said, listen, I want to connect you with the private banking sector of JP Morgan, right? But that was because of in the room who he was having dinner with, that then he was like, wait, let me make this introduction because it makes sense, right? So if you're not in the right rooms, you're not going to have that connection. So to bring it back,
you're not going to get access.
Black Wall Street, creating that community.
Well, I just want to expand one part that I think is super important that you didn't touch on about Black Wall Street. Black Wall Street was created because of a necessity, because they were being excluded, right? So God forbid you prosper when I'm trying to omit you, right? Because that's the real thing right there. God forbid you start popping when I'm trying to oppress you. And the truth of the matter is that I feel that the Latino Wall Street, I don't want to, I had a really good conversation with a guest named Majora Carter. She does some really big urban revitalization in New York City. And she was talking about how deep rooted racism and classism is and how far back it goes, right? But think about how you get some dynamic people. I'll use us as you get 2 dynamic people in a room, and we start masterminding, and we're like, yo, let's do this. Yo, yeah, that's good. Yo, fuck it, let's do it. And all of a sudden things start happening, right? Meanwhile, I don't know who's watching, but eventually, if we get too big, you might see somebody be like, yo, chill, that can't be it, because we're not part of that equation. But the problem is that if everybody was playing in the same circle of abundance, saying, yo, man, look, here's opportunity, you wouldn't have these sectors. And that's why I applaud you. I applaud you because I remember reading about Black Wall Street. I remember that. And even though I went to NYU and all that, what I do for a living has nothing to do with what I went to school for. But because I went to NYU and I was able to hang out with probably the 1% of the nation, my mindset changed dramatically. The possibilities that I saw were just incredible. Like when I was growing up, I grew up in the hood where the guys, doing the wrong things on the street were like your idols. They were driving like these big time cars and all that. And that's all you knew. So you thought, yo, that's making it, right? So then I go down to NYU, and then I see kids paying their tuitions with credit card bills, driving around BMWs at 17 years old. And I had never seen that before. And I started to learn how big the world was and how much opportunity there was if you just try to wrap your mind around it and try to go after it.
Well, let me say one thing to your listeners, whether they're Black, Latino, you're a man, you're a woman, it doesn't matter your sex, nation, or creed. But if you're saying to yourself, I'm not part of that club, the only reason that you're not part of that club is because you've chosen to exclude yourself. Correct. Black, white, Latino, the only color that matters is green. The only color that matters is money. Right. If you come from Saudi Arabia and you're a billionaire prince, they don't care that you have.
You're playing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You're playing those games. So it's really easy to disqualify yourself from the game. Because
how much of that is embedded in people though, right? How much of that is right, especially Latino culture. Yes.
It's part of the culture to be a victim. It's part of the culture to blame someone else.
Right.
Right.
And take no accountability for it.
Then I don't have to show up to practice. Right. I don't even have to play the game. I don't even have to lace up my shoes. I don't have to wake up. I don't have to do my laps, right?
Yeah, because I already disqualified myself.
Because the game's rigged.
Right.
Why am I gonna play the game if the game's rigged?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you know what? I'm gonna stay at home. I'm gonna collect public assistance, and you know what? And I'm gonna give a middle finger to every time that I see somebody that's doing better than me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There's something.
50% of millionaires were not born that way. More than 50, I think it's like 90%, 80, 90% were not born that way, and more than 50% work a 9-to-5 job. They don't tell you that either. Right?
Right.
More than 50% of millionaires work some sort of a 9-to-5 job. They have a stable income, and then they take that money and they invest it and they make their money work for them.
Right.
Right. But we're told that wealth is wearing Yeezys. We're told that wealth is flexing for the gram.
Right.
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 Real wealth is by investing into real assets over time, like what you do, real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's one of the easiest ways for people to transform from the middle class to the upper class.
Real estate, I mean, stocks and bonds, equity placements, stuff like what we're doing with Modi.
In the new economy,
That's what I'm segueing that into that right now. So you have actually you teach courses on cryptocurrency right now?
Yeah, financial education.
Financial
everything
education.
From stocks to cryptocurrency to investing and everything that's going to.
So where do you feel crypto is right now? Obviously it's in infancy. It's been around what, 10 years?
Depends on when you want to
say it was around
10 years, but when do you say it started? But yeah, sure.
Okay. So you feel it's in its infancy still, right?
So I'll say this. Right now we're living in some really crazy economic times, political times, right? The biggest benefit for crypto, it's actually not a benefit that that everyone sees. It's not what people think it is, right? People think it's a get rich quick scheme. They think it's a lottery ticket, right? The real power of crypto is the fact that you can have no capital controls on your money. And let me talk about what capital controls are. So capital controls it's something that affects really big money, but I'm also going to talk about how it affects even someone that lives in
the day-to-day.
In Africa, right? It affects both ends of the spectrum. It affects billionaires, and it also affects people on the lowest 1% of the income bracket in the entire world, right? And here's another thing that I just want to say for your listeners: if you're living in the United States, you're already in the top 1% of the world.
Yeah.
Because the rest of the world is not living the life that you're living right now, does not have access to the same opportunities. We take it for granted in the United States that you can walk into any bank and not only create a bank account, but also get a loan.
Right.
And you have access to all these different financial instruments. If you live in Africa, if you live in places in Latin America, you cannot even get a PayPal account. They will close your PayPal account.
The government.
PayPal. Whatever.
PayPal will close it because because the country doesn't allow it?
No, because they're going to see you making money,
mm-hmm.
and they're going to say, who the hell are you in Venezuela to be making that type of money? This is a fraud risk. Frozen.
Very interesting.
And I'm not even talking about big money. I'm not even talking about 10 G's or more.
Okay.
You make a few thousand, right? And I know this because I have employees. I have people on my team that are living in these countries.
Right, and you have to figure out ways around
it. It's a weird thing that happens. You know what I mean? On a daily basis. So crypto removes that. There's no middleman involved with cryptocurrency. You do not need an ID, right? PayPal, the first thing they'll flag you. Hey, we need to see ID. Who the hell are you?
Right.
KYC, know your customer.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Those are the laws and the regulations that are in place, right? But if you were born in a province, in a rural province in Latin America or Africa or an emerging market, right? You may or may not have a driver's license and a passport and every single X, Y, and Z checked off.
Let's get crazy and say you might not have a fucking address.
Yeah, you might not have an address.
Yeah, you might be floating. You might be living.
You know what's crazy? I live in Puerto Rico. I don't even have an address because my house, and I live in a nice house. If you follow me on Instagram, you probably see my house. But I live
check out his house. That's Disrupt CEO.
It's not on Google. You look it up on Google, it looks like a mountain with trees, right? But you know, I'm not in that same category. But what I'm trying to explain is, in emerging markets, we take it for granted that you walk into a bank, that right away you're in the top 1% of the world. Right away, poverty is illegal. Do you realize that poverty is illegal in the United States? It's illegal. There's something called the social safety net. the fabric of society has a social safety net. We have it here in Puerto Rico, and we have it in all 50 states, where if you're broke, you go to the government and they give you some sort of monthly income.
Right? Yeah, some sort of assistance.
That doesn't exist. Do you understand when I explain to my friends in Latin America that in the United States they're giving away $1,400 checks and Biden and stimulus and unemployment plus, people are making more money than they work. They don't understand. They're like, what? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, they're finding reasons to give you money. Yeah, so we can get into that mindset, right? Where if we're busy giving people money, then what it kind of takes away their aggressiveness of trying to move forward. Right? Because you're lulling people to sleep. I mean, and I'm just talking about.
Well, and there also is a cap system that happens. So what they do is they'll give you a minimum amount of money, and then they'll tell you if you make more than X, we're going to take that away.
Right.
So if you're coming from a scarcity mindset and you're like, wait, I don't want to make too much money because then my free money will go away. Then you start self-limiting yourself. And that's the dangerous part. That's why I've never really accepted any sort of welfare government program. I'm really not a big fan of them because what they do, and everyone has hardships. Listen, if you're on government assistance right now, whether it's SSI, whether it's Social Security Disability, there's tons of different programs that are out there, but they need to be temporary solutions. And what ends up happening is people get dependent on those solutions. Absolutely. But let's talk about one more thing, because we were talking about stimulus, and I can bring it back to crypto. So we say that the government was giving money away, but what they were really doing were they were printing money, and every single time that they print money, the money that you have in your bank account gets devalued.
It's worth less.
So it's supply and demand. Right now, there's $1 trillion in the world, and if you print another trillion, well, that means my dollar is now worth 50 cents. And we've seen that happen over the last 18 months since the lockdowns. Right. We've seen the cost of bread and milk and gasoline and real estate and wood to build a house and cars, even used cars are selling for more than new cars because it's outpacing inflation, and supply and demand is upside down. So the problem that we're having now is our currency is being devalued. It's the same shit that happens in Venezuela. Venezuela devalues their money at 2,000% per year. That means your money will be worth 2,000% less than it was the year before. Now, United States is not there yet, but we are approaching very, very record high historic levels of inflation. And that's one of the things that crypto solves for. So Bitcoin in particular is a limited supply currency. There's a limited amount of crypto that's been created in the Bitcoin ecosystem. And once those Bitcoins are minted, they're not making any more.
Right.
So what that does is that creates currency that's not deflationary. It doesn't go down over time. It creates a currency that's actually worth more over time. So that's one of the things that crypto solves for. And that problem is not going away.
Right.
The second problem that it solves for is what I was speaking about earlier is the banking system, right? So you don't need an ID. You can download the Exodus wallet or Trust wallet. There's a few wallets that are out there, but you can download a wallet and they're not going to ask you for an email address. They're not going to ask you for your phone number, your name, your age, nothing. A 5-year-old kid can start a crypto wallet, open it up and start sending and receiving transactions. And there's nothing that any bank, any regulator can do about it. So that's a great thing for people in emerging markets, right? Because they want to do business with people all around the world. They're able to send and receive payments.
How can they collect money? Right.
But it's also really important for the top 1%, for people that have a lot of capital and they're concerned. They're worried that they keep printing money and my savings account is worth less and less and less and less. I dumped a bunch of money into building my house this year because I'm scared that the money that I've been saving is not going to be worth anything. So I'd rather have a pool than have money that's constantly being devalued.
Amen.
So that's one of the important things of crypto. And then the power to move your money, right? I need to send a wire transfer for the Modi investment that we're doing.
We'll go into that next.
But I had to send a wire transfer, and Chase told me I had to walk into a physical branch to do so. They wouldn't give me permission to transfer my own funds. So I was able to make a few adjustments and pull it using an investment account, whatever. But I had a gatekeeper. Right? Yeah. I had a gatekeeper telling me
what
how much
your money.
You can only send $25,000 per day because we said so.
Yeah.
Well, who do I talk to? Right? And I ended up wasting a week until I figured out, you know what, I'm just going to use a different account, and this account's not going to work for me. But that problem disappears with cryptocurrency. There's no middleman, there's no gatekeeper, which means there's no capital controls. Which means if the United States goes to shit, or the United States passes some crazy law and they want to
taking assets
or whatever the hell happens, you have the ability to move your funds without a middleman, without an intermediary.
That seems like it's incredible. I just think that people and I'm not, this is not a negative thing I'm about to say, but it's a thing that people have to become, because going back to almost like your conversation about, you hit a certain cap and all of a sudden they're talking about taking away your money. I think they also give you insurance, right, on certain FDIC and stuff like that. And that kind of gives you like some sort of fake security, and you feel like, oh, it's safer there. But the truth of the matter, if this is run on the bank, this happened during the Depression and stuff like that. There was runs on the banks. Even if they were insured, there was no money. So people got to understand that, like, sometimes it all kind of stems with you. One thing I started learning this year myself was I had to make some really aggressive moves in life. And, like, you have those people who say, yo, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. But it all really comes from you. People want to help people that are trying to do things for themselves. I find that anyway. And just using crypto as a segue, it's just another way of saying, hey, man, if you're going to be accountable and you're going to learn your shit to understand the way this market moves, you can control your own financial destiny. But I feel that a lot of people just feel like it's a lot of, like, you have the large institutions now telling their clients, oh, we're going to manage your crypto for you, right? Mm-hmm. So that it's almost like people are kind of positioning themselves already, saying, we're going to invest for you, but, like, it has to go through me, that type of thing. And what people don't understand is that you don't have to put it through them. You can do it on your own. It takes a little more effort, but if you control yourself, you control everything, you control your destiny. And that's what people, I feel, they don't kind of understand. And that's what I want to touch on with you, because it's always easier. Like we said before, it's like, I say something, we said this for a minute back and forth, but I want to say, I'd rather die a player on the floor than live my life on the bleachers. That's just my DNA. That I'd rather do it that way. And but other people like to just sit up there and judge, or sit up there and poke and just not do anything with their lives. But they're upset when, you become the next LeBron, next Michael Jordan, but you're out there, you taking your shot. You're trying to make a move. And people have to understand that, like, if they want to, be available or have access to people that are making a move, then they have to be of a like mindset. It's not like we have to go out there and like preach the gospel to try to convert people, because I'm going where I'm going anyway. And so are you. If you want to come with us, that's cool. If not, we're still going, and we'll see you from over there. My view's gonna be a little different in about a year, but that's where I'm going. I think that's where the part comes where people they either don't want to take the responsibility for the risk, or like you said, man, they've been lulled to sleep. Whereas we're getting this fake security, and as long as we stay in the middle, we don't get too big or too small. We stay in the middle, we'll be all right. So
yeah, that's the biggest problem. Is it really is fake security. Right. I interviewed a guy on my podcast who. Ian Smith, he owns a gym in New Jersey that was closed during the lockdowns. He closed for the 2 weeks to slow the spread, then 30 days to slow the spread. And then he said, all right, listen, I got to open up. People need to go to the gym. They need to be healthy.
I know who this guy is. This is the guy who went against Jersey, basically. I remember. Okay.
And so he just opened up his gym free to the public, and he said donations only. You guys want to come buy a t-shirt or something, but like, I think fitness is important in this pandemic. And the governor of New Jersey was saying, no, you need to be closed, you're not essential. And he said, no, I think health is essential. And I think a lot more people are in Walmart and Costco than are coming to my small gym.
Right.
And so he remained open. He started fighting them in court, right? And they seized out of his secure FDIC bank account, they seized $160,000 in cash and said, we don't care if your criminal case is over yet, if your court case is over yet, we're going to take these funds. Right. So that's another solution for crypto, is when you have tyrannical governments, when you have governments that, and the government is very unstable right now. Mm-hmm. I think we just saw in Afghanistan that the thing got taken over in 5 minutes. The world and the governments all around the world are very unstable right now. So crypto gives you a place where if the banks do fail, or if the banks do change their mind, or the government or the politics or whatever do change, well, you have your funds in a place that's secure, that's in the cloud, that cannot be touched and
seized, right? Whatever, right.
And then to go back to the fake sense of security. One of the big things you talked about, preaching the gospel. One of the big things that I try to get through people's head: if you want to make money, you need to give up the notion that money is evil. You need to give up the notion that the game is rigged. You need to give up the notion that the cards are stacked against you. Because if the game is rigged and money is evil and the cards are stacked against you, then again, why would you play the game? Why would you even show up? Right? Money is just a transfer of value. If I'm providing value to the marketplace then decides whether or not they want to invest with me. And that's why the thing that I always say is vote with your dollars, right? Vote with your dollars. If you believe in a product, if you believe in a service, if you believe in something, well, then put your money where your mouth is and then let the market decide. Right now you have restaurants, some of them are choosing to ask for a card to get in, right? For some people that grew up in Nazi Germany, that gives them flashbacks. That doesn't feel like freedom. To someone that grew up in Cuba, right, over a socialist communist dictatorship, that doesn't feel like freedom. So you vote with your dollars. You don't have to throw a Molotov cocktail, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't even need to do anything other than patronize businesses that are operating in ways that you agree with, and don't patronize the ones that are not.
Right.
And it's that simple. And then the market decides, and that's the beauty of capitalism. But people think that the odds are stacked against you. No, if you look at every person in our generation, and it's actually never been easier to become a millionaire. Every person that we see in our generation that's accumulated wealth in the last 20 to 30 years since the internet was invented, they've created great contributions to society. Steve Jobs invented the freaking iPhone. We probably wouldn't be able to do this call without the technology, right? All of these great inventors. Elon Musk is revolutionizing cars, making them electric. Has Ford and everybody else trying to catch up.
Everybody shook.
Right? Yeah, has them all shook.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
This guy disrupted everything. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it's a great contribution to society. And Elon talks about this. It's like, listen, I'm not doing this for money. Elon Musk invented PayPal, sold it, had enough money to retire.
He had enough money to just chill, just go off into the sunset and just be like, you guys are good, I'm good.
But he's still working 90, 100 hours a week, going crazy because now it's not about him. It's not about just his finances or his legacy. Now he's trying to leave a legacy for everyone else. Mm-hmm. And when you attach yourself to a problem that's bigger than yourself, if you want to become a billionaire, you figure out how to impact 1 billion lives, right? You find a problem that's bigger than yourself. When you find out how to provide value to the marketplace, then the marketplace will reward you. And money's not evil. Money's a tool. Money's like a hammer, right? You can use a hammer to hit someone over the head. It's a really evil way to use a hammer.
Or hammer
you
nail.
Use a hammer to build a house, right?
Yeah.
And help someone. So, money is just a tool, and it's a vehicle that can be used to create a lot of good.
Money is really influence. I use that. I tell people all the time, the way you spend your money will influence things. So like you said, going to, if you support, like one that I think, like a lot of guys ask me, about business, right? They're like, yo, how do I grow business? I was like, this is one of the things I tell my sales team, and I'm sure, I don't know if you tell you guys, but I tell them, where you go every day? Like if you go to the diner every day, if you go to a dry cleaner every day, I was like, you could drop your business card there. Why? Because you're a customer there, you're a client there. People like you there because you're spending money there, right? So people are going to want to help you because you're helping them. And whether you get something or not, doesn't matter. You're still going to spend your money. You're still going to eat at your favorite restaurant. You're still you need to do certain things. You need to get your clothes dry, stuff like that. Like that's what I was telling my guys, where you spend your money, you should just, let people know what you do, because people want to help people that are helping. And it just becomes that kind of synergy, right? But wait, you were talking about Elon for a second, and I want to just kind of segue that back to you. You just went to Puerto Rico how long ago?
Going on 4 years now.
4 years you live in Puerto Rico, but you went to Puerto Rico because of Hurricane Maria.
Yeah, so
right? Let's talk about that.
We went to Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, and we came to do humanitarian work. So when we came, 50% of the island still didn't have power.
Yeah.
Right. Again, we take it for granted that in the United States you have a blackout that lasts an hour. Right. This was months going by, and 50% of the people, over 1 million plus people, still didn't have power. Right. So we came to Puerto Rico, and we donated 300 solar panel lights. Me and my good friend Hugo Sanchez from the Modi app. Mm-hmm. And we weren't a nonprofit. We weren't some big corporation. Big
just
government.
2 dudes trying to do the right thing.
Just some entrepreneurs, right? Just some crazy entrepreneurs. And we went knocking on people's doors. and giving them solar paneled lights and water. And the thing that I realized when I came down here is every single person that we were quote unquote helping, it was the people with no money and no resources.
Right.
You know, either you had fuck you money and you could literally just rebuild, do a backup generator, you know.
You had your options. You had options. Right.
Or you had JetBlue money and you could just get on a plane and go see your friends and family in Florida.
And wait till the law straightens out.
And wait till it straightens out, right? Or never return, which was another problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the people with no money and no resources and no voice, right? Living in these provinces. It wasn't San Juan. San Juan got reconnected in about 1 to 2 months,
mm-hmm.
right? We came here in January, February 2018. So that was about 4 months later. So it wasn't the San Juan people. It was the people with no money and no resources in the campo, in the really remote areas, but still millions of people who were basically disaffected and didn't have enough money or a voice. But what they did have was Wi-Fi. And it was the same thing that I needed to run my business. When I came to Puerto Rico, I was like, hey, is there Wi-Fi? Because as long as there's Wi-Fi,
I can make it happen.
hang out down here and work and do humanitarian stuff, and I can balance. And I ended up taking a trip that was supposed to be a week, turned into a month, right? But I was only able to do that because there was Wi-Fi. So all these people, even in these remote areas that they didn't have electricity, and they might have not had clean running water because you take it for granted, but the water needs to be cleaned with electricity.
Right.
So you use electricity, then you don't have water pumps, and it creates all these ripple effects, right?
Right. Help pumps.
But those people had internet. I was on the top of a mountain doing an IG live,
and you had internet.
And internet was working.
Okay.
So if they had internet, well, then they had the connection to the same economy that I was connected to, the same business people, the same business deals, the same opportunities. They just didn't know it. And I realized that the difference was education, right? And, the traditional education system in the United States is already out of date. Mm-hmm. And in Puerto Rico, it's probably 5-10 years behind, right?
Absolutely.
And it's not that people are not educated, right? Puerto Rico is part of the United States. Highest, if you consider it a state, it's a weird Commonwealth situation, but if you consider it a state, highest percentage of any other place in the United States of college educated people. There's a really good university system here called UPR, University of Puerto Rico, and people are going to college. The problem is when they get out, these degrees.
What are they able to do with it, right?
Exactly. So that's when we started our entrepreneurial movement called Disrupt. The movement is twofold, right? So one of the things is training people for the new economy, right? Training people to get jobs. People don't realize this. You can work for a New York company or a Silicon Valley company and still live in Puerto Rico, right? So just getting people in tune with the career skills that they need so that they're marketable on the global job force, right? India did this. India changed their official language to English from Hindi to English 20 years ago. And they've seen their economy explode in the last 20 years because they decided we're going to be a global player.
Right.
When people want to hire someone in a call center, they're going to hire us.
India.
They're going to hire a web developer to do a website. They're going to hire us. Marketing, they're going to hire us. Right? They decided that they wanted to be a global player. So, so the first part of that is being career ready, hireable. The second part of that is entrepreneurship. Right? Why aren't there more companies being started here in Puerto Rico? Right? If there were more companies here, then less people would leave, right? The other problem in Puerto Rico is the brain drain, right? People go to college, they get educated, and then the smartest people end up leaving to Silicon Valley or to New York City to work for a big tech company.
For better opportunities.
Right. Yeah, there's better opportunities. There's not that many startups here in Puerto Rico. So how do we continue to foster the existing entrepreneur ecosystem here in Puerto Rico and create more startups, create more unicorns here on the island? And then that creates more jobs and it stimulates the economy. And then the third point, and that's why we created Latino Wall Street, is then financial literacy, right? Once you're making money, whether it's through an entrepreneurial venture or through a really great job, right? And you're earning 6 figures, how do you take that money, invest it, save it, have it working for you so that you can then create generational wealth?
Right. What do you do with it? That becomes the third part, right? People say, oh, I want $1 million. All right, bet. Here's $1 million. What are you going to do with it? And then they blank. They go blank. They're like, I don't know. Buy a car? I'm like, yeah, no. Well, you gotta have a plan. Like I
of people that win the lottery, they end up broke.
Yeah, I tell people all the time. I was like, what is it that you want? And they were like, I want to be rich. I'm like, okay, why? Because your why will dictate how you know, like how far are you going to go? If you're just doing it for the number, just for status, it's an empty why. And if you do get lucky enough to get there, once you're there, you're not going to have any more purpose, right? And when you move without purpose, you kind of start to fall apart. And I find that very interesting when you ask certain people, like, you know, what is it that you want out of life? And most young people, especially young, oh, I want to be rich. I want to 7 figures. I'm like, okay, cool. What are you going to do with that? And then that becomes and I'm like, you have to know your why. You have to know your why. They asked me that one time, like, why is it that you would do what you do? I said, because I want to be able to impact lives financially. I want to be able to say, like, if there's somebody who's in need, like we had a little hurricane in New York, not a big deal. I was just through social media, you track down certain people in your area and you can see, you know, that like some people's basements were all gone. Like people became homeless. People were sleeping in tents in front of their houses because it got flooded. You want to help people like that. You know what I'm saying? But I want to have the ability to not have to decide whether I'm going to buy something to eat or help somebody. I want to have that financial ability. And that's my why, right? I want to have the ability, kind of like you went to Puerto Rico, you wanted to help. You were self-funded, right? And when you self-fund, people understand that you cut a lot of middlemen out. You cut a lot of all that politics, they call it, you know, like people telling you what to do and all that. When you self-finance, it's what you want. And the beautiful thing of social media, and I believe the internet now has become more widely, you can, I don't like when people glamorize the whole, you know, I'm giving back to people, and like see the picture and shit. I'm not into that. But you can document it. I mean, I've helped this many families, or this got done. You know, just kind of set the precedent, because if you have other guys in your vicinity that may be capable of doing the same thing, maybe they didn't think about it, or maybe they thought, oh, I don't know where to start. And you start by stepping forward, man. Like, yo, I got you. Your neighbor, I got you. Don't worry about that. And then it starts a movement, and it starts a change of culture, of mindset on a mass scale. And I think not enough people are doing that.
Well, one of the things about philanthropic work and nonprofits, right? So I came down to Puerto Rico and started a nonprofit. It's my first time doing something like that. I volunteered for a lot of companies, but I never tried to create one. And one of the things that people don't realize about nonprofits is that they are businesses, right? The whole thing of like,
the tax shelters,
teach a fish or give them a fish, right? Give him a fish,
right.
He eats for one day. You teach him a fish, he can eat forever. And one of the guys that I had on my show, Naveen, he's a billionaire, Indian billionaire. He blew up in the .com bubble, and now he has like a space company that goes to the moon and all these crazy ventures. But he was speaking about a nonprofit that came to him asking for money. So they came to him and they said, hey, we have a women's shelter, and we would like you to give us a donation, right? Because you're a billionaire. Mm-hmm. He said, okay, great. Well, what's your business model? How do you guys make money at this shelter? Like, oh no, we find guys like you and then we ask for money. It's like, well, that's not a good business.
That's not a business model.
Yeah. He's like, who's your customer? Well, my customer is guys like you because you guys pay me. And then it's like, well, no. She said my customer is the women, right? The women come and it's like, how much do they pay you?
The people in the shelter?
Yeah, the people in the shelters. Uh-huh. Well, they don't pay you, so that's a really bad tenant, right? That's not a good customer. And so what he ended up doing is restructuring her shelter and working with local businesses who needed employees. And now these women are coming. They're coming from bad homes, and a lot of them have kids and they need a job, right? So she created an employment path, and then got local businesses to give her funding. For every single woman that they send, the job will not only pay the woman for their work, but will also pay rent for the bed.
Oh, nice.
And create a whole business
like
model.
An ecosystem. Yeah.
A whole ecosystem to not only fund the shelter, but now give these women a pathway to becoming financially stable.
And get out the shelter.
But that was changing the mindset from a nonprofit, from a handout, to actually, no, let's run this like a business. Let's run it like an incubator, right? And it's still a nonprofit. And now they're able to impact so many more lives because they have a real sustainable model.
Okay. I like that. I never heard of that story. So let's talk about Hugo Sanchez and the Modi app. I want to get into that. Modi app, video chat 2.0 is coming out soon, where it'll be able to go from Android to iOS. I don't know if you saw the new, I got a little excited about this. I saw the new update with Apple, where they'll allow you to FaceTime with Android users. Did you see that?
Yeah.
And I thought about implementation onto the app where like, even if not having Android users be able to download the app yet, but they'll still be able to subscribe and they'll still be.
You send them a link, right?
Exactly.
You send them a link and you're able to do it that way as a workaround. But for people in your audience who don't know, what's the Modi app? So the Modi app, Modi stands for money on time instantly. And Modi is essentially, if you think about it, it's like FaceTime and Venmo had a baby. Right. The problem with consultants right now, whether it's doctors doing telemedicine, whether it's business consultants, is their billing system and their communication system are completely fragmented, completely separated. Right. So
delayed.
Yeah. Lower quality. Right. And think about it like this. Have you ever spoken to a lawyer and you speak to him for 5 minutes and you get a bill for an hour?
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
You're like, wait, I thought that was a 5-10 minute conversation, right? Well, so Modi solves that in a couple of different ways. It gives you transparent billing per minute on a video conversation. It gives you crystal clear audio quality, right? Because it does on-device recording. It's a very unique feature. Most video chats, they go through the cloud, right? Right now we're communicating remotely on Zoom, right? So it's going through the cloud and the quality is getting degraded. With Modi, all that recording happens on device. So now you have a crystal clear quality version of the call. And essentially it creates commerce for influencers, consultants, whether it's people in the medical industry, business industry, right? And it gives them an avenue and a vehicle to completely have transparent billing. You click one button, you make a phone call, and now you're not wasting your time for free. You're actually getting paid for your time. Right. So it's a really, really innovative app. It was started by Hugo Sanchez, a Puerto Rican entrepreneur who was born right here in Puerto Rico, lived in New York for 20 plus years, recently moved back, and he's working with some investors here on the island. And then my company, Latino Capital, is now raising his first round of funding to help him help his app develop the V2, get the Android version out there. And we have a lot of exciting things that I probably can't announce. I'm going in my head right now. What can I say?
Right. You want to edit yourself as you speak.
You don't want to give any insider information, right? But right now they're in the process of releasing their next version of their app, which is going to add all these new features. They have a community right now of 4,000 plus members, many of them influencers in the social media community, millions and millions and millions of followers, social media following combined. And it's really exciting. The new version, they're going to be able to go live, do a live like this and charge and sell tickets.
Yeah, it's pretty that's pretty crazy for the artistic movement. Like, I mean, I'm talking about like established artists that have to go through and probably like, going through Live Nation, shit like that, through clearinghouses. Also, the non-established artist that if he has some sort of following, he can capitalize on his own thing and not have to be at the mercy of a record company or a promoter or what I'm saying. Like it just changes a lot. Going back to what I was saying to you before in the podcast is that once you start controlling yourself and you're controlling your revenue right now. At that point, if you have enough distribution, then that's it. You don't need anybody else. You have the distribution. You can collect your revenue through Modi direct, right? And that's it. You produce your own shit, control it, get paid. Money on time instantly?
Yeah.
There you go. You get paid right there. So, I think it's gonna once people become more aware of it and understand how to use it, I think it's gonna change the game. Because people have to go to, we're going to do this, but I'm going to Venmo you this, but you can do all of it in one shot. And, if you want to get really crazy, if we're doing some sort of consult, you have the consult recorded there forever on your phone. So you can, what did Omar say? Or what did Tony say about that? Let me go back. Like you always have it to refer to and you own that because you paid for it. You own that time, right? You understand that concept? That's kind of a big concept. All right, I have another question for you. This came up to me the other day, and I had a pretty unique answer. I want to ask you a question. How do you determine who you end up working with? In the beginning of a career, you work with anybody because obviously you're just starting, so you don't really have, you know, the power of being a decision maker. Toward in my career, I listen to everybody, but then as I've matured in my career, I listen to everybody, but then I also, I kind of, the way I determine it is, I usually, there's a vibe to it. And usually you want to see if your visions are kind of aligned. And what I mean by that is, I believe there can be a win-win in every transaction. Even if it's not right there, maybe in the long term, it's a win. How do you determine who you work? Obviously you're running, you've mentioned 2 or 3 different companies right now. So you're global, right? Your sales team is global and your infrastructure is global.
Yeah. We have 50 plus employees in 8 different countries, bunch of different time zones all around the world.
There you go. So my question to you is, besides employees, but just other people that you end up working with, how do you determine that? What is your barometer? How do you know, what's your true north?
So it's funny when you're asking this question, it reminded me of when I first came down to Puerto Rico.
Okay.
So when I first came down to Puerto Rico, we were hosting our events, doing our workshops and seminars, but we were also running a digital marketing consulting agency, right? Something that we still do. I've minimized that a lot, and I've got much more selective, to your point. But I honestly was always selective. It was always, number one, it needs to make sense financially, right? Needs to be worth your time. There's something called opportunity costs, right? So you can make a lot of money. This is actually one of the big differences between day trading, right? A lot of people in our community, they want to learn day trading, right? And I'm not a day trader, admittedly. I'm an investor, a long-term investor. I like to put my money and make my money work for me, because there's something called opportunity costs, right? You could have a great project, deal, etc., but the time that I'm investing in that, it could be taking my eye off the ball of what my main vision, my main purpose is, right? So it has to align. It has to not only be getting me where I want to be financially, right? You can come to me and say, hey, Tony, I need you to do consulting for my company, and I need you on, 3 calls a day, right, for an hour, and I'm going to pay you $100,000 to do that, right? And it's a 30-day consulting contract, let's say, right? Even though financially, $100,000 in cash is a very attractive offer, I would still have to decline that offer, because the opportunity cost of my eye being off the ball, it's not worth it.
Of your greater vision, right?
Yeah. And let's say I was doing consulting for a pizzeria.
Okay.
Right? Completely unrelated to anything that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right? But that exact same contract, exact same time commitment and requirement, if I was doing consulting for, let's say, the school system in Puerto Rico, if the Department of Education wanted to hire me as a consultant for the public school system to help the middle schools, right? And high schools, and help them get a more technology-focused education. Could be the same time commitment, the same money commitment, but since it aligns with my vision of what I'm already doing, the direction that I'm already going in, it would support all my other brands, right? It would support Latino Wall Street. I could take Latino Wall Street's education curriculum, put it into the school system so that it can have the impact, right? Then I would probably take it for a lot less.
Right.
100,000, right? Because it's putting my cart on the same path that I'm already going. It's moving the ball forward, right? So I think that's a big decision maker. And it reminds me of when we first moved to Puerto Rico. I had a guy that was on my team, and he took a course online about how to start a marketing agency or something. So I hired him to do Facebook ads and some other things, and he was trying to convince me to run Facebook ads and for me to market myself to HVAC repair guys in North Carolina and in the United States, right? And he's like, no, this is big money. I took this course, and trust me, this is how marketing agencies, we're going to be a marketing agency, but we just focus on HVAC repair. And I was like, bro, that doesn't align. Abstract. I can make money, but it doesn't align with my mission.
Right.
Do you know? Then I'm going to spend all my time, all my energy working with HVAC people. And it's not to say that HVAC people don't need to run businesses. They do.
Right.
But I'm not an HVAC consultant.
Right.
Do you know? And I don't want to become one. That's going to take me so far off the ball, right, that it's not aligned with my mission. So that's what it has to come down to. It's not only money. The money needs to be there. So it's worth your time.
To even have a consideration, right?
When people pay, they pay attention.
Right.
Right. So I realized that I used to take on small clients, and I stopped taking on small clients because I'm not going to care enough to give them, and I'm not going to have enough resources.
Right.
I'm not going to be able to hire someone and dedicate them to your
Your
project.
time is finite, and yeah, you have to apply it best.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. If you give me a $500 budget, right? How am I going to allocate the resources to your project to make sure that it's successful? Right? I'm not. So then I'm going to look bad, right? Because I wasn't able to execute.
Yeah, you don't deliver. Right.
And then you're also going to be unhappy because you're not getting the service that you want. You're not getting to the next level. So I got to a point in my career where it was like, okay, we need to only focus on projects that are going to create this much revenue so that I'm going to pay attention, right? Because if not, I'm not going to care enough to actually want to put in the work and energy, and I'm not going to be able to hire people and resources to move those projects forward. So number one is the money needs to be right. Number two, the vision needs to align, right? And again, I might do something for free for the Department of Education in Puerto Rico if they needed me. Right?
So you see you see the long game. You see the long game, the way it can impact so many lives, right? Yeah. And what about the third thing? What about like having character?
The third thing, and this is probably the most important thing, is number one, is I really only like working with people that what they're doing, whether it's videography, whether it's marketing, whether it's business, whether it's investing, they have such a passion for it that they would be doing it regardless. That it's not about the money.
Right.
Obviously, it needs to be about the money, but I like working with people, whether I'm hiring them, whether it's a business partnership, whether it's a collaboration. I like working with people that whatever they're doing, they're so passionate about it that they would be putting in the work regardless. So yeah, those are the three things.
Money's a byproduct. All right, let's talk about what's coming up. October 22nd, right?
Yeah, so October 22nd is the next Disrupt. It's our 3-year
anniversary.
When we came to Puerto Rico and did the first event, the first festival. Obviously with COVID, it's going to be an online event. And yeah, I mean, we're living in some crazy times where we're still in the midst of a pandemic. It's been 500 days since Donald Trump said there was 2 weeks to slow the spread. We're still waiting on those 2 weeks.
We're still waiting on 2 weeks to manifest. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, there's a war. There's a war on social media. There's a war over our bodies, over our minds, our souls, our spirits. And a lot of people have uncertainty. I mean, every week it feels like they keep changing the rules.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a lot of uncertainty in the economy. There's a lot of instability, politically, economically. And that's why we created the recession-proof boot camp. So our next Disrupt event, it's going to be wildly different than some of the other events that we've done in the past, where the entire outcome is how are the modern day millionaires and billionaires thriving in this time? Because if you look at the statistics, more millionaires got created in this last pandemic and the rich got richer. So what are they doing, right? What strategies are they applying to not only survive this pandemic, but to thrive? So we're going to be talking about cryptocurrency, obviously, capital controls. How can you get your capital to work for you? There's a lot of really new financial instruments in DeFi, decentralized finance, where you can earn way more interest than what you would earn in a traditional bank. Really high yields, really high income potential for taking your capital and putting it to work, right? And putting it in an asset that is undisruptible. How can you make your business be recession-proof, right? How can you get your business and digitalize it, right? And use the modern strategies that are helping businesses grow exponentially, right? Amazon's looking at buying up all the malls, right? Because they went with a digital first approach, right? So how can you get your business and get it to be recession proof? Right. So that's the focus of this whole event. And yeah, I'm really excited. It's October 22nd. And you go to disruptweek.com and would love to see you guys.
How do they register for it if they need it? Disruptweek.com?
Yeah, go to disruptweek.com.
All right. In summary, you like to work with people that would do it for free, right? Like that's how much you have to love it. You believe in accountability of yourself and of constantly trying to evolve with education, because if you're educated, you can be creative, you can innovate, and then you can execute. But people don't understand that, and I'm just bringing it back because I think the main leitmotif is that's a music term, but basically the thing that we're talking about most of the time me and you, is mindset. And what people have to understand is that your perspective changes everything. So if you walk into it and you say, oh, it's not going to work out, yeah, you're right. If you walk into say it's going to work out, you'll find a way to make it work out. You'll be right. It's all mindset, and people have to understand that. You did some. I watched you on something. I forgot you were talking about. And I want you to just talk about it a little bit right now. About having there's the warrior, there's the lover, there's the different parts of your personality, and I like that. I really like that. It resonated with me because you do have to have. I like to use harmony, like, because I really feel, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong. There's going to be certain times in your life where certain parts of your life need more attention than others. So it's never like, yo, 3 hours of work, 3 hours of this. It's never like that. There might be times that I got to work 9 hours. Not gonna have that much time for the wife and the kids, but then on the, like other days, you're trying to balance it out and you just try to keep it into harmony. But people don't understand that because they feel like they watch Gary, they watch a lot of different guys, and they just hear what they want to hear, and they'll hear like, oh, hustle hard. And there was a topic that came up about how many hours do you sleep, and it'd be, to me, it got almost that stupid, where people are not trying to use fucking common sense. I'm like, you sleep as much as you need to wake up and be fucking effective again. And you work as long as you feel you're being effective. Like, there's a lot of common sense that people are kind of like, common sense is not common, right? A lot of people kind of losing it. They're like, oh, well, why didn't you tell me? How can I tell you how you're supposed to be? You're supposed to know that.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing that I realized with Gary, and this is one of the reasons why I don't consume as much of his content as I used to. I realized that he was not talking to me. Mm. He's talking to the 18-year-old kid, the 16-year-old kid, that they're playing video games. They don't really have their life together. They think they are an entrepreneur. They think they might want to start a business.
They like the word. They like the word.
Yeah, they like the word entrepreneur, right? Yeah. Feels sexy. But he's really not speaking to the people that are in the trenches. Mm-hmm. He's telling kids to like go and sell stuff on eBay, right? I did that when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. I do recommend it when I talk about my pyramid of digital wealth creation. That's step one. Step one is like e-commerce, right? Grab anything, product, and just sell it, right? Because if I sell you a t-shirt, I don't care who you are. Yeah. You have the t-shirt. I want to buy the t-shirt. It's a commodity. It's the easiest way to make money online is e-commerce, right? But that's who he's speaking to. He's speaking to the kid who's probably still living with their mom, or the kid who's like fresh out of college, probably working an entry-level job, and like they like the word entrepreneur, but they fucking play video games all the time, and they're not really living.
They have a lot of dead time. They have a lot of dead time. Like,
so for that person, that they fucking have 100 hours on Call of Duty a week, right? Yeah, that stuff works. That's needed.
That'll move you.
I leave here at night all the time, right? And my struggle is the opposite. My struggle is, how do I spend more time with my wife so that we have a better relationship? My struggle is actually, how do I have more time to sleep and rest and recharge so that I can hit the streets the next day, right? How I can dial back my ambition. Yeah. So, I think Gary and, ET also is like big with the motivate. Right. I think those messages are important and critical, but they're critical for people who haven't started. Once you've started, then it's really the opposite. How do you find that work-life balance?
I find that harmony. I think another thing is that like people, you can't measure, like everything is bespoke, to use that term. Bespoke meaning customized, right? Like, my personality works, certain things work for me that might not work for you. So you can't use that. You can't use the same method. I can show you what I do, but you might try to do it. It might be like grinding your fucking gears. Like, you might hate it all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to find what kind of works for you. What's going to allow you to become, what's a sustainable model, right? Like, you can, like, people say, oh, I want to work out. All right, man, work out. Well, this is what you got to do. You wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning? Yeah, I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. What time do you go to sleep? 10 o'clock. What do you do? Like, I tell them, I break down the whole fucking day. And they'll do it for one day. And then day 2, get harder. Day 3, they're off. And day 4 is done. But
that's you. But you figured out what works for you.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah. Well, that's what I was telling people.
Super creative at night.
Right.
Me, I'm one of them.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a struggle to fall asleep at midnight. Like, that's your thing. Make sure you're freaking at sleep at midnight, because if not, you're going to stay up and be crazy, right? So that's, as I became mature, that was my cutoff, was midnight. But I have a lot of creativity in the lower hours of the day, after the 9 to 5 people go home. I'm usually the last person out of this office, right? But I love that. I love being able to work here at 6 o'clock, have no phone calls, no distractions.
Have to be quiet.
Have that quiet time, be able to put in those extra few hours.
Yeah.
But so it's about perspective and what works for you, right?
Right.
A single guy probably should work 7 hours a week if he wants to be a millionaire or a billionaire. Right?
What else are you going to be doing?
And once you have kids and you have these other obligations, then those other obligations start to trump business, and then you have to find those balances and hire the right people. Right. Again, I think the Gary V's and the ETs, and I've worked with both of them, both really great guys, but I think the Gary V's and the ETs of the world, they're speaking to the solo entrepreneur who's just getting started, right? And more money, more problems. Once you have a bigger organization, now my biggest problem isn't me working hard enough. It's how do I inspire my team? How do I attract the right talent? And how do I grow and scale in others? Because there's only 24 hours a day, even if you work 23 of them.
Right, absolutely. And then, you can make so much more of an impact if you assemble a squad, right? That's why the Avengers beat everybody, not by themselves. Same concept. Like I agree with what you're saying. I think in terms of who they're talking to, but I think the reason I want to touch on it is because people look at people like you. Sometimes they look at people like me and they're like, oh, these guys, I'm gonna do that too. Yo, man, before I was married, I've been going on 20 years now. Before I met my wife and got married, when I was in my 20s, I worked 7 days a week. I had a liquor store when I was like 25. I was up at 8 in the morning, going to sleep at 2 in the morning, but I was single, so what else is it? All you're thinking about is how do I grow my business? How do I do that? Then other things come into your life, and all of a sudden they take a little more. They take some importance. You're like, yo, I wanna nurture that too, because having a certain amount of success is dope, but having money and hanging out by yourself all the time, that shit is boring, right? Because who are you gonna talk to, right? So that's what they have to understand. I feel like they have to understand. Hey, man, look, as you level up, you're gonna have to adjust. Right. It just becomes, you said more money, more problems. As you level up, there are different, you're going to get to that next level, look around and be like, yo, all right, so these are the challenges here. Right. Like the challenges down there were just trying to make the money. Right. I need to pay the bills. Once you pass that and you have some sort of success, and then all of a sudden now you have a little bit of money, you're like, okay. So now up here is like, yo, how do I have quality of life? Right. Forget it. And then you have kids, and then you're like, yo, how do I become like a good father, as well as and try to balance it all? And how do I be a good husband? And it's forever. As you grow, as you climb the mountaintop, you're gonna get to the top and see there's another mountain that's higher. So I wanted to touch that. I want to touch on that with you because I think it's important. I think not enough people talk about it. I think people feel like success is a destination, and they don't understand success is actually a journey. Because you can succeed forever. It's forever. My wife tells me all the time. She's like, "Yo, you'll be good for a day after you do something good, and then you're back to it." I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah," because
there's levels, right? There's levels to this shit, and again, you gave a really great analogy of, the single guy. Single guy is only concerned with providing for himself, right? Paying my own bills, taking responsibility for just my house, my rent, right? And making sure I'm good. And then you expand, right? And you expand to, hey, I'm going to take responsibility for a wife, for a kid, for a team of people, for a whole community, right? Hey, I'm going to take responsibility for the whole island of Puerto Rico. Right. And I'm going to just make that my problem. And if I see something important, if I see trash on the floor, I'm going to pick it up because I'm going to take responsibility for a bigger,
something bigger than me.
Part of the world.
Right.
Right. And I'll give you one more story because I know we're running low on time. I met a billionaire when I moved to Puerto Rico. He was Act 20. He was coming down here. He was in the process of selling his company for $700 million.
Very nice.
And I had the opportunity to hang out with him for 2 or 3 months and help him get situated down here on the island. And during that time, he told me everything about his business and his family life and all these different ventures that he had and really interesting. I learned a lot from him. And I wanted to do business with him. I was like, wow, you just sold your company for $700 million. I want to start the next company with you, right? And I'll never forget, he told me, bro, you're a crazy single guy. He was like, at the time, I wasn't married. I wasn't even dating anyone, seriously. And he's like, you're a crazy single guy. He's like, what do you have to lose? Your dog? Even your dog, you'll probably abandon, right? He's like, we do a deal together and the deal goes sour.
You walk away.
Beer, yeah, you walk away, you blow it off. And he was like, I'm not even making money right now for myself. I'm making as much money that I can put into a trust so that my daughter and her kids and my grandkids
We'll be
will
all
be
right.
good and will be set. He was like, I have all the money that I need. Now I'm hustling for my next generation.
It's my legacy play.
Different mindset shift.
Yeah, my legacy play. Yeah, absolutely. You want to leave something for the generations to come. And once you start like serving something bigger than yourself, and this is just me speaking personally. Like I have my family and things like that. You are always motivated, and your ability to endure bullshit becomes a lot bigger. Because if it's just you, like, I mean, just using another example, like when you're younger, Latinos especially, we have like these tempers, right? We flare and all that. As you get older, you're like, yo, like, let me hit you back in 24 hours. Let me think about that. Like, because you don't want to be that guy anymore, because it's not just you anymore, right? It's things that can affect your family, your ecosystem, everything. So you're like, I want to tell this guy to go fuck himself, but let me just be cool. Yo, I'm gonna hit you back in 24 hours, all right, man? I gotta I gotta figure that out. I'm from personal experience. It changes you when your why is bigger than you. When it's just you, it's like, yo, this is my movie. If it ends here, it ends here. And when it's bigger than you, it's like, yo, man, this has to be continued. So I got to kind of figure out how to leave them in the best position that I can, because, where I come from, nothing. So my kids are better off now than I was, right? And I tell them, your job is, when you have your kids, to have them keep leveling up. Your job is to leave the next generation in a better position than you had. And I believe it's an actual obligation. If we're going to construct something and, like become bigger than we are or better than we are, you know what I'm saying? Like, I believe if you have that mindset, that's when things really happen. It's when it, like, going back to when we spoke about earlier, like, oh, what do you want? Oh, I want $1 million. All right, what are you going to do with it? And then all of a sudden their face is blank, because they hear it so much on TV or on the internet. Let's just use the internet. They hear it on the internet. They have no idea behind it, the why. They just hear a number. I want to make 7 figures. All right, for what? What are you going to do with it? I heard this one and I almost punched him in the face. He came to interview at my office one time. He was like, I just want to be able to control, work from my laptop all day. No offense to you, but in real estate, you can't do that, right? You have to go see the building. You have to go speak to the people, like the relationships. I was like, all right, that sounds really cool, but we're not selling anything online. We're in the trenches. It's all about relationships in my business, right? Like people want to, I don't want to say they want to fuck with you, but people want to be with you because they understand the integrity behind you. Like, they like your brand, right? You got Latino Wall Street on, the Hustler brand, the HRM brand, everybody. People like that. They're like, oh, I believe in what you guys represent, right? And that becomes the bigger thing, because you become now a symbol instead of just, a guy who's, yo, I'm doing it. Yo, you represent financial literacy. Yo, I love that. I'd love to align with you because I believe in that also. I'm doing it in my way. You're doing it in your way, but it's still the same thing in just different avenues. We're just riding different pillars, right? But it all is under the same house.
Well, and that's the power of brand, right? You have the opportunity, because of the internet, to build a global brand from anywhere in the world, right? And then we never had this opportunity, right? My ancestors had to go to New York, to the big city, to try to have big dreams. Now you can communicate with anyone anywhere in the world as long as you have Wi-Fi. So you have the ability to build a brand, and by the time you walk into a room, people already know who you are. And the funny thing is, I was doing this 10 years ago, even when I was still in corporate. I used to make videos about my career, right? I was a software engineer. So I would make videos about coding and software and technology and stuff. And I would put the videos on LinkedIn.
Right.
And I walked into a job interview, and there's 30 people in an office, and the girl at one of the desks, oh, hi, Tony. Yeah, I watch your videos on LinkedIn, right?
And then you had that aha moment.
The videos had already done the work for me.
Absolutely.
So that's the importance of building a brand, and also, like you said, doing things that are aligned with your brand. Right. Being an HVAC guy, that wouldn't have aligned with my brand. If there's a bunch of videos out there like, hey, do you need help with HVAC? Right. I would walk into a room, they'd say, you're the HVAC guy, right? So that's also the importance of doing things that align with your brand, because the things that you communicate out there in the world, they're going to be remembered for a long time after you've said them.
Yeah, and the one beauty thing when I talk to my marketing team about this video shit is that your grandkids and your great grandchildren will be able to look at you at the height at when you were doing it, when they may look at you at that point when you're like 90 and shit, and you're like, oh, hijo, when I was that age, but yo, now there's a point of reference, right? They could be like, yo, grandpa used to do that shit. Or even you, like when you have kids, you'll be a little older and stuff, and you'll be like, yo, I used to run around, I used to do this. And they're like, yeah, whatever. And then they'll look and they'll be like, wow, dad used to get down. And I always thought about that as the super long-term play. Like, I'm like, yo, yeah, because like, when people pass away, stuff like that, like my father's passed away when I was young and stuff like that, you look around for pictures and you don't have a lot. Like, there's never enough pictures. Like, honestly, when somebody passes away, somebody you love, there's never enough memories. And I thought of this also when I started doing this in 2019. I was like, yo, this is kind of be dope because they'll have a collection on the internet they can always reference to. And they could be like, look, yo, he used to do this. He used to do that. Like, I just feel that a lot of people don't think about that either. Like the internet real estate is free to a point right now, but yo, you can take as much as you want if you just put the work in.
Mm-hmm. Love that.
All right. So yo, October 22nd, see you at the your event. We will talk more about the Modi app in future episodes. And I thank you for your time, brother. Where can people reach you? Let them know if they need you. Yeah. And if they need you, what are your services?
So you can hit me up on Instagram at Disrupt CEO. Follow us on IG. Follow the company too at Latino Wall Street, at Disrupt Magazine. And yeah, we offer a wide variety of classes, everything from cryptocurrency to the stock market to business, investing, marketing.
Real estate's coming. Real estate's coming.
If you're trying to level up in your life, real estate coming soon.
Yeah.
If you're trying to level up in your life, then we're the best place to do it. So yeah, if you speak Spanish, go to at Latino Wall Street. If you speak English, go to at Wall Street University and at Disrupt Magazine. And we've got a bunch of free classes, so definitely come and check us out. We'd love to work with you.
Anthony Delgado, thank you so much for your time, brother. I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to seeing you in person again. And
October 22nd, become recession-proof.
Bigger and better things. Recession-proof boot camp. All right.
And
we're out.